The relationship between Yoda and Dooku has always been one of my favorite in Star Wars. Even though the two of them would not say it to each other as of the era of the Clone Wars, they held great respect for one another. Dooku, in many senses, is Yoda's Anakin to Obi-Wan. He is the apprentice that fell to the dark side with great promise, and he is the brother that Yoda loved. Yoda considered Dooku the greatest loss that he had seen from the Jedi during his lifetime. In truth, Yoda believed that one day he would hand over the Jedi Order to Dooku entirely, and Dooku would inherit it as the new Grand Master. When Yoda encounters Dooku in Attack of the Clones, he is astonished by how powerful his former apprentice has now become, as he is almost able to match him in lightsaber combat as well as use of the Force. However, Dooku is ultimately forced to flee, as he is in fact facing Yoda, the greatest swordsman and Force wielder that the Jedi has. Still though, this was a moment that greatly shocked Yoda. When the Clone Wars began, Yoda has stated that Dooku was more powerful than Windu, and was his greatest threat and rival. In terms of lightsaber combat alone, it could be stated that when the Clone Wars broke out, Yoda and Dooku were 1 and 2. Again, in terms of simple blade-to-blade combat. As the Clone Wars raged on, Yoda saw a slow transformation in Dooku, however, as Yoda realized that in his age, his skills began to atrophy, and Yoda did actually reveal that the Dooku that Anakin Skywalker killed in Revenge of the Sith was not as powerful as the Dooku that he had fought multiple times during the Clone Wars. Moments before Dooku actually engaged Skywalker, he admits that he is growing tired to Palpatine, and looks forward to the day when the Clone Wars will eventually end, hoping that if killing Obi-Wan and turning Anakin, that this will eventually bring that day upon them. Yoda and Palpatine realize that Dooku is in fact getting weaker as of the time period of Revenge of the Sith, and that as his rival Anakin Skywalker begins to increase in power substantially, Dooku begins to atrophy and diminish. Yoda even states that Dooku's power is moving backwards. So why is this? Why was Dooku weaker in Revenge of the Sith than he was in Attack of the Clones or at different points during the Clone Wars? And if a prime dark-side Dooku fought Anakin Skywalker, would Skywalker still come out on top? The answer is dark-side degradation. Dark-side degradation occurs once an individual has fully submerged themselves in the dark side for an extensive period of time. The dark side takes pieces of you when you use it. The raw energies of the dark side flowing within an individual does take its toll and causes one's body to weaken. This is in fact why Palpatine is so hideously deformed in Revenge of the Sith and in Return of the Jedi. Obviously though, just because they are weakened in this state, it does not mean that they are weak overall. As Palpatine, for example, his ability to force augment his physical body far overcomes any physical weaknesses or ailments he may have. With that said, in Star Wars canon, when Palpatine attempts to run without his use of the Force, he is surprised that he is even capable of doing so. This is Palpatine though. Dooku is already far older than Palpatine at the time when he is taken as Sidious's new apprentice, and although Dooku experienced a substantial power bump once he eventually turned to the dark side, the darkness is staring back into Dooku now, beginning to take its pound of flesh. And although Dooku is still very much a formidable foe in Revenge of the Sith, he is in fact weakening while Skywalker begins to increase in power. In all reality, Dooku simply turned to the dark side far too old in life. Staunchly opposed to this, Qui-Gon Jinn was a Jedi Master of nearly 60 years old in The Phantom Menace. The light side of the Force though has been known to rejuvenate, while again the darkness takes. There are of course methods that the Sith use in order to prolong their life, methods that Dooku probably was not aware of, as Palpatine kept them for himself, and always perceived Dooku as more of a pawn and strictly expendable, a means to an end. It's very telling though that both of Dooku's masters, both current and former, recognize that he is diminishing in his power. This is also why Palpatine determines that it is time for Dooku to go. He is no longer a match for Skywalker. I do believe though that Anakin at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith, if he were to face a prime Dooku, the two of them would be equally matched. And even though Anakin does use the dark side to defeat Dooku in their duel, I think that it would take Anakin fully embracing the darkness in order to defeat a prime Dooku. And even then, Anakin would not go out unscathed. It's clear that Dooku is diminishing in power, but let's not sleep on Darth Tyrannus. When the Clone Wars begins, he's conceivably the third most powerful Force wielder among the Jedi in the Sith orders, right behind Yoda and Palpatine. Even according to Yoda, he's more powerful than Windu. As we saw, he absolutely toyed with Obi-Wan and Anakin, and he's considered a better swordsman than Palpatine. Let's not sleep on this Sith Lord. I constantly see Dooku as an underrated combatant in the Star Wars fandom. I've used the analysis of tiers before, and at the beginning of the Clone Wars, I do consider Dooku to be tier 1. Again, he may not be the most powerful at that time, but he is absolutely in the upper echelon. Even in Revenge of the Sith, he manages to ragdoll Obi-Wan using the Force. So, in respect of this great Sith Lord, put in the comments down below the most impressive feat that you have seen Count Dooku do, whether that's in books, comics, or in the films. And let's finally put some respect on his name. Anyway, my friends, what are your thoughts on this, and why Dooku atrophied near the end of the Clone Wars? And where do you rank Dooku at the beginning of the Clone Wars versus at the end of the Clone Wars? How far backwards did Darth Tyrannus slide? Thank you guys so much for watching the channel. Your continued support and viewership means the world to me. May the Force be with you, and have a great day.